So Lynette is the reluctant leader that was thrust into a situation she neither wants to be in, nor was she planning on being. So she was growing up thinking that she had a specific life ahead of her, and due to some certain circumstances, she was exiled and was basically thrown away into the fleet that protects, what they call the Ark, which is an artificial colony that they are basically, contains their entire civilization. They're exiled. Their home planet was destroyed when a mysterious enemy came out of nowhere and burned it. So basically contains their entire civilization. And she was looking forward to a life of, the cast of being a woman, but certain things happened, and suddenly she has to go to the fleets to basically defend the Ark, and that's where all the men are. So there's a lot of gender things going on in this book, as well as generational things, because Lynette was born as the generation that came of age after their homeworld was burned. So she has no memory of it, but she grew up listening to stories of her parents and her grandparents telling her these horrible things that happened. They're basically living in fear of these horrible memories, and kind of shaped her into the person that she was. But she, the men in this world don't live very long because it's so dangerous being a member of the fleets that protect the Ark. So she is not super happy about having this happen to her, but she finds her calling and realizes that she has a lot of potential to change things. So slowly throughout the book, she develops into a leader that people are very inspired by and kind of converge with and follow. And things kind of escalate from there, and things get interesting. So the reluctant leader, I think, is a good way to describe her.
All right, welcome back to Living the Next Chapter. It's the author podcast with the most amazing podcaster guests on my show as authors. And I love having authors on here because I learn so much from these amazing people and their journey. And I love creative people, and I love people who could tell a great story. And Luke is here on the podcast. He's got a great Facebook page that we can share with you in the show notes. And I'd love for you to go check out Luke and all the great things he's up to. He even posted that he's coming on the show today, and I'm so excited. So there we go. Luke, welcome to Living Next Chapter. Glad to have you on the podcast.
Oh, I'm excited to be here. Thanks, Dave.
Great. Good stuff. Let's talk about first. I like to do this because then there might be somebody listening who lives where you are, and they're like, oh my gosh, Luke, like right down the street from me. Tell us where you are, Luke, in this big world of ours.
Yeah, so I live in the super exciting state of Ohio.
Wait a minute. Is it super and exciting?
Oh,
really?
Well,
Both?
it's the most exciting state in the world.
Wow.
People don't really know that when they drive right through it. But I live about 20 minutes southeast of Cleveland in a small town called Twinsburg. Yeah, it's nice, small suburban town. It's really nice.
Beautiful. I like that Ohio has both an O at the beginning and at the end. It's like and an I. So you kind of like hogging all the vowels almost, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Right.
3/4 of the word.
Good. Is this where you're born and raised in that part of the world?
No, I've actually lived all over the world. I was actually born in Europe, and
really?
Yeah, I was serving in the military. I've traveled a lot. I've worked on 3 different continents. I've lived in 6 different states now. So Ohio is where I consider myself to be from, though. It's where I met my wife. It's where I settled down as a family. So we intend to stay here. So
good. Tell us a little bit more about your military background. I always love having anyone who served their country on the show, no matter what they've done. I just want to honor people that take that path in life. I think that's outstanding. So tell us a little bit more about your background.
So I served as a combat engineering officer in the United States Army. And as a 22-year-old kid, I was sent to Afghanistan and told that I would be taking charge of a group of 20, or actually it's more like 40 sappers out in the middle of one of the most remote parts in Afghanistan. And we went driving up and down the road looking for bombs and IEDs, just to kind of clear the way so that they wouldn't find other people that weren't trained to deal with them.
Yeah.
So that's what we did.
At 22.
Yep. I was 22 years old. And was I ready for it? No. Did I learn a lot? Yes, I absolutely did. It was one of the most formative experiences of my life, actually. So
Yeah, I've had many people on that served in Afghanistan, Canadian American soldiers that have been on, and some of the stories are so harrowing. Like just not only the danger, but just being in another country and the culture shock and missing family and then the age. I can't imagine somebody at 22 having access to the gear, equipment, and training that you would have at 22. I think that would be something like a 40-year-old would have. But here you're given all these tools right at that age. And that's amazing.
Yeah, I was a 22-year-old lieutenant, and I was told to take charge of people that were twice my age in a lot of cases. So,
wow.
Yeah, interesting experience.
Wow. Do you think things like those kind of experiences, your career, your family, your education, does that kind of bleed into your writing, do you think?
Oh,
does it kind of give you some foundations? Yeah.
Yes, absolutely it does.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, in a lot of ways, I mean, Falcata, we will obviously get more into this later in the podcast, but I mean, it really is, it's all about leadership, really. It's about a girl that kind of was thrown into it. She wasn't ready for it, but she was forced to adapt and kind of take charge and learn what it means to lead. So, yes, definitely.
Direct connection there to that. Wow. Yeah. Well, yeah. So I've had people on and kind of debate this in the past from an author's perspective. Some authors will say, write what you know. Some authors will say, write what you love. And then I have authors just do a combination of the two. Do you kind of have a preference for your own writing style? Or do you write what you love? Do you write what you know, or both?
I do both, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, I love science fiction. Do I know what it's like to be on, a group of outcasts wandering through the galaxies searching for a new planet? No, but it's something I love to write about. So definitely.
Well, you've been part of a group of outcasts wandering through Afghanistan.
That's true.
Foreign land, right? So you kind of did that. Just not on another planet. Well, almost on another planet.
It seemed like another planet for sure.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, see, I love, that's what I find unique about authors is, like, there's so many books, Luke, like, you're up against, like, a book every few seconds are being created around the world, right? So, and it's like, well, and I talk to authors and they get hung up on that. They're like, well, with so many books, who cares what I have to write about? Like, what are the chances that anybody going to read my book? But you are the sum total of everything you've experienced in life. And that makes your book so unique outside of everyone else. You could write about almost the same topic in the same kind of world and story and character, but no two authors are going to be identical. So there's a lot of uniqueness just in your approach to how you write that makes you stand out.
Yes, definitely. And the industry is continually changing. I mean, I've been writing since I was a very young kid. I mean, back then the big five publishers dominated, and now anybody can publish. So the market has changed very, very rapidly and very significantly since I started writing. But I mean, it doesn't take away from the fact that, just like you said, write what you love, write what you know, and add your own unique spin to it to kind of give your own unique voice. And nobody else is going to be able to replicate that in the market.
Talk a little bit about, for the authors that are listening, the elements for you, from your perspective and your writing and how you approach writing, things that you keep in mind about how to tell a great story for an audience. Because I think storytelling is probably one of the things that sets us apart in a world of AI and click a button, here's a book type thing, write a book in 10 hours type thing. I love a good storyteller who can bring an audience in. For you, is there somebody that you admire that tells great stories, or how did you learn how to do this?
Well, really what I like to think about is, I love watching movies. I'm a big movie guy. And, I love science fiction movies. I love thrillers. You would think about your favorite movie scene and how it made you feel. What grips you about it? What makes you become absorbed into that scene? And pick out little details, the pacing, the characters, and you try to basically take those vital elements of that and kind of recreate that in your writing to kind of recreate that effect so that when people read your books, they kind of pick up on the same things. And that's what I try to do. I try to write very, action oriented, certain when the situation calls for it, with characters that really draw you in, that seem genuine. But I mean, the list goes on and on and on. But really, I take a lot of inspiration from just how certain scenes in movies make me feel. And I try to kind of build that in my own writing style, actually. So,
okay.
And there are certain authors that I feel like do very well with this. My favorite author is actually C.J. Cherryh, which she's a classic sci-fi writer, but and she's won the Hugo and Nebula Awards multiple times. But even in sci-fi circles, she's not a very widely known name. I feel like her way of limited first person is very effective in the way she writes, and it's always been something I've greatly admired about her work.
So, okay, from a non-author perspective then, or a new author perspective, can you explain a little bit more about that limited first person, third person again, just so we can kind of make sure people listening are like, oh, I know what he's talking about.
Yeah, so limited, this is how, certain authors are super effective at taking you away and dropping you into a new world and kind of being able to feel and see and sense and hear what your main character is feeling. So what limited first person is you only see what your main character sees. You only hear what they see. You only feel what they feel. And you really don't know anything that they don't know yet. So it's a very effective way to build suspense. And in certain genres like horror, it's very good because you're going to get scared when the main character gets scared. And it takes practice to be able to write like that, but it's very effective, and it's predominantly the way I write, because I really enjoy the way it just pulls you in and makes you kind of a part of that world.
Okay, so the opposite of that would be kind of like a 30,000 foot view over your character and story. You can see what's over the next hill. You can see what's coming in advance before your character does. And you kind of have you have knowledge that your character hasn't experienced yet.
Exactly. Yep. Okay. And there are authors who write like that. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So for your book, then you're writing from which perspective?
Oh, definitely limited first person.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you said it's more difficult to do that?
I think it is. It takes practice to kind of. It's not something that I've always done, but just being able to kind of hold back on certain information you don't want your reader to know yet, and then kind of slowly reveal that as you kind of get the story to go along. It's very effective at building suspense, and it kind of keeps your reader hooked as they go. So it really helps with the pacing, the suspense, and keeping your story exciting, really. Because if you just dump all the information right up front, it's going to be very dense, and it's not going to be very exciting in a lot of cases. So
right. So you're purposely not showing your hand, kind of like in cards.
Pretty much.
Right. You have knowledge, the other people don't.
Yeah.
You'd be like, hey, look, I got all these great cards. And you're like, no, I'm going to just poker face. I'm just going to let this thing develop. I'm not going to show my hand. Okay?
Absolutely.
It's kind of like a little bit like that.
Yes, definitely.
Okay. All right. That makes a lot of sense. I like that. Any other tips for authors that are listening that, from your perspective, that you've learned over time?
Definitely.
That you're like, oh, I would love to share this with an author.
There's two things that I wish I had known from the beginning. One of them is to ignore the naysayers. There's always going to be people out there that don't value what you're doing. And it doesn't matter what kind of art you're into. And yes, writing is art in a lot of cases, but there's going to be people that don't understand it, don't value it, don't really care. Like, don't worry about that. Just move on from them. The people that want to see you succeed will appreciate what you do, and they will help you. But writing is hard. It definitely in the beginning. And, find those people that really care about what you're doing and want to see you succeed. And that's really the first thing. And two, develop a system, because, writing a 200,000 word science fiction novel is not an easy thing to do. But like the old saying goes, how do you eat a 50,000 pound elephant, one bite at a time? What I do is I don't set out with the goal of writing a 200,000 word sci-fi novel. I mean, I just do 500 words a day, which doesn't sound like a lot, but over time, you'd be surprised how quickly that adds up and how quickly you can get a very big story writing as long as you stick to that goal. So no more, no less, 500 words a day. And that's really the code I live by when I'm writing my next book, is I stick to that and I don't deviate from it. And it's almost like the book writes itself because I keep myself from going over 500 words, because if I'm excited to keep writing, well, I kind of carry that into the next day and I keep going. So you build momentum over time, and it really helps.
Interesting.
But you build a system and you build a process and you stick to it. And it really kind of takes a lot of the intimidation and a lot of just the sheer difficulty out of it. So
almost making it sound easy, Luke. Like every day I can just write 500 words, no problem. I never have a motivation problem. I never have a day where I don't feel inspired. It just sounds like it just flows out of you, right? But somebody listening is like, good luck. I can't do that. I can't commit to that, Luke.
There is this this rumor floating around in the author communities that inspiration is overrated. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. If you kind of wait around for inspiration before you start writing, you're going to be waiting around for a really long time. Inspiration doesn't come frequently, and when it's sporadic, and you can't really time an author career on inspiration. You just got to get out and just do it. You got to muscle your way through it, whether you're inspired or not. And kind of training yourself to do that takes time.
Right.
Yeah, I won't say it's easy because it's not, but it definitely becomes easier over time.
We want to talk to the readers too, because you've got a couple things to offer up to readers that you've written. When we were chatting in the past, you mentioned that the first book for you was a little bit of a struggle in the process of writing. And in the struggle, I think that's kind of where we learn a lot.
Yes.
That help us in the next project we work on as well. But can we talk a little bit about your first project before we talk about the most recent?
Yeah, sure. So my first book was called Icewind. It was published in 2023. It actually took me 8 years to write the book.
Wow.
And there's a number of reasons for that, but the plot is just really out there. I mean, it's about theoretical physics, about the end of the universe, billions of years into the future when black holes are kind of collapsing and eating the universe. I kind of had this idea like, well, what if somebody was there to kind of survive through that? And that was my idea. And I had it, all the way back in, 2012 or something, back when I was first getting married and starting a family. And I had to think through how a story like that would work, and it was very hard. But after 8 years of working on it, I finally finished it in 2019. The rough draft, anyway, before I did any editing or anything. I finally had a story that worked, that I thought that made me very proud. But then I had some serious character issues that I had to go back. And when I started submitting it to editors and to agents, it was always the same feedback. They didn't like my main character because of certain issues. So I actually rewrote the book probably 2 or 3 times since then.
Wow.
Yes. But it was finally picked up and published. I signed the contract for it in 2023 with Golden Storyline Books. So, and I'm extremely proud of it. Just this last year in November, I actually won 2 awards with Icewind. So with Inspire Tomorrow Media Book Awards, I won Editor's Choice as well as Best in Debut Novel. So I was very surprised to see that. But yeah, it wasn't easy, but I'm happy with the end product for sure.
I love a successful, long-term, overnight success story.
Oh yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
It took me years to get here, but it seems like it happened overnight for everyone.
Oh yes,
yeah, right. That's good. A little bit more about the story for then Icewind, because we're going to talk about your new book as well. But what's in there for the reader then? What are you trying to tell us through this book?
Yeah, so Icewind is really about it's about really mankind's struggle against the universe. There's some very incomprehensibly vast forces out there in the universe, and really it's a story about how insignificant we are in the face of all of it. But the main character is a very flawed deeply, pained individual that is haunted by his past, and he wants nothing more than to be reunited with his daughter after a painful divorce, after he was acquitted of murder that he didn't really commit, and but on top of all that, he's one of the solar system's top particle physics researchers and scientists. So he's trying to develop faster than light space travel to kind of expand, to kind of alleviate an overpopulated solar system. Well, war starts to break out and the test is accelerated. Things don't go the way they're supposed to. And time and space gets compressed and he gets thrown 35 billion years into the future to a very alien universe that's basically in its last throes. And it's basically consuming itself. And it's at its very end because all of the black holes remaining are kind of eating themselves and there's not very many stars and planets left. But somehow he sees that there are other people, there's other human beings around that are scattered around, kind of living primitive nomadic lives. They're very tribal, and they're using salvage technology from, alien races that they don't understand. And he's got to try and figure out what's going on, who these people are, how they're able to survive, what this strange religion is that they're very wrapped up in, and how we can kind of figure out how to fix everything. So that's really what the story of Icewind is in a nutshell. And like I said, it's very big. It's about, but it's also very personal towards Mark, the main character, himself, because he's very, like I said, he's haunted by his past. All he wants is to kind of heal the damage that he's done to his family, and he longs to be reunited with his daughter. So it's a very personal story as well.
I love that. I see that's the whole idea behind this podcast. Is I want people to hear that and go, okay, that's a book that I would really be interested in, or I know someone else that would really love that story just based on that premise alone, right?
What?
The whole world around it. That's kind of how we get there, but knowing that's kind of the underlying story behind the scenes that we're going to develop over time, I like that. That's good. That's good. Would you say Icewind would be a good starting point for a new reader, or would you send them more to what you're doing currently?
Yeah, I'd say it'd be a great place to start for sure.
Okay, Good. Yeah. All right. So everybody will have links for that actually in the show notes, so you can go grab Icewind. I'm encouraging everyone, when you do, not if, but when, that you leave a great review for Icewind as well, so people can pick up on what we're chatting about here on the show, and you can share your thoughts as well around that book. That'd be really great to help bring some life to a book that's been out there for a little bit, but still has a lot of great value for readers. So that's amazing. It's good. So what's the time gap between Icewind finishing and your new project starting, and kind of what's happened since then?
Okay, so Icewind I worked on between 2012, 2019. Falcata I actually started writing before I finished writing Icewind.
Okay.
For a number of reasons, but I think I first got the idea for it probably 2015, and I didn't really start writing it like for real, devoting a lot of time to it probably until after I finished Icewind.
Okay.
But it took me, I'd say, probably about 6 years total, including those brainstorming years to finish writing. And I finished writing Falcata in 2021, and years of editing took place, and I signed the publishing contract for Falcata in 2024, and then 2 more years of development went through to get it ready, and it was just released this past month in February 2020.
Good.
So
okay, the title, like Falcata, what is this? Is this a place, a person? So for somebody re-seeing this the first time, they're like, what is that?
So Falcata is actually a symbol. So in ancient Roman times, it's actually a sword that came from the Iberian Peninsula, and it's made famous by Hannibal attacked Rome with forces from northern Africa, Gaul, they what was now modern day Spain and Portugal, but the swords they used, and a lot of those soldiers that were under his command, they used the falcata, which is a very distinctive looking blade with a horse's head. And it's curved, and I've been asked that question before, like, what does that have to do with a space opera, science fiction space opera? And it really goes back to the symbolism behind it. And the main character, Lynette, she actually sees the symbolism because she's basically the tool that is used to kind of break down order and discipline that has dominated for so long. Just like the Falcata, Hannibal used the Falcata to do so against Rome. She is doing that against a very defined, rigid caste system that has basically kept her people in tyranny for years and years. So her military call sign actually becomes Falcata because she inspires leadership movement behind her. So
Interesting.
yeah, symbolism really is what it is.
There's a lot of depth to you, Luke. Like that when we talked about Icewind, you're talking about universes and black holes. Now we're talking about this. Like, what drives you? Like it sounds like you have a lot of interests that really consume you and influence you as well. Where does all this depth come from? I haven't met a lot of people that kind of come at their writing from all these different approaches.
I don't know. Well, thanks for the compliment there, but I honestly don't know. I have a lot of interests, and sometimes they just kind of converge in certain ways, and I'll be taking a shower or I'll be laying in bed at night trying to go to sleep, and ideas will just pop in my head, and
Wow.
I have to write them down. That's another piece of advice for new writers. Write your ideas down. Do not forget about them. You can keep track of them because even if you have like 5 different ideas that don't really work separately, we'll combine them together, and you might have a very complex, interesting story that you can kind of go with. So
I love those little taps of inspiration that seem to happen. And they seem to happen the most when you're in a creative space, like a mindset, or you're sitting there, like you said, writing your 500 words. That's where creativity seems to pop up. And then when your mind is completely disengaged and you're not even thinking about it, you're like, wait, I got to write this down. I like that.
And I know I just said earlier that inspiration is overrated, but it's not to say inspiration doesn't happen. So when it does happen, you need to take advantage of it, write your ideas down, but then you need to appropriate that into your 500 words a day. So that's kind of the way I operate. And I don't know if I did a very good job of answering your question, but that's the best I can do, I guess. So
that's good. Okay, tell us more about Lynette. I want to know more about her as a main character. If you could describe her to a group of people at an event, for example, and she's going to come up and speak or whatever she's going to do. But you're like, I get like a few minutes to introduce this character to the room. Introduce her to us. Like, what do we need to know about her?
So Lynette is the reluctant leader that was thrust into a situation she neither wants to be in, nor was she planning on being. So she was growing up thinking that she had a specific life ahead of her, and due to some certain circumstances, she was exiled and was basically thrown away into the fleet that protects, what they call the Ark, which is an artificial colony that they are basically contains their entire civilization. They're exiled. Their home planet was destroyed when a mysterious enemy came out of nowhere and burned it. So basically contains their entire civilization, and she was looking forward to a life of, the cast of being a woman, but certain things happened, and suddenly she has to go to the fleets to basically defend the Ark, and that's where all the men are. So there's a lot of gender things going on in this book, as well as generational things, because Lynette was born as the generation that came of age after their homeworld was burned. So she has no memory of it, but she grew up listening to stories of her parents and her grandparents telling her these horrible things that happened. They're basically living in fear of these horrible memories, and kind of shaped her into the person that she was. But she, the men in this world don't live very long because it's so dangerous being a member of the fleets that protect the Ark. So she is not super happy about having this happen to her, but she finds her calling and realizes that she has a lot of potential to change things. So slowly throughout the book, she develops into a leader that people are very inspired by and kind of converge with and follow, and things kind of escalate from there, and things get interesting. So the reluctant leader, I think, is a good way to describe her.
That's good. What's something from her character that you admire? something about you that it just inspires you when you think of her?
How humble she is, actually.
Okay.
She is not narcissistic or arrogant at all. And I made that a point to write because you hear so many of her thoughts and her doubts throughout the book. And really, it's meant to humanize her because she is not a superhero. She is not any of that. She's very troubled. She's very flawed. She's very conflicted. But despite all of that, she rises above all of that and makes some very key pivotal decisions that saves a lot of lives and changes everything for the better.
What about the opposite then? What would you say is one of her blind spots? Things that she's unaware of, but when we see it coming on the page, we're like, oh no, Lynette, this is going to happen. No. Anything stand out?
Yes. Without giving away some super big things that happen during the novel, but she does make some rash decisions that she doesn't think through.
Yeah.
100%. And, at least at first, the repercussions and the ripple effects are not good. But, she learns from those mistakes, I'll say.
Okay.
Like I said before, she's flawed and she's human. So that's, it's definitely her biggest character trait, but also a character flaw, I would say.
Any other supplemental characters in the story that we should be aware of or keep our eyes and ears open as we're reading?
Yeah, so there's a few. So there's our commanding officer throughout, her formative years when she goes to the fleet and trains her. He's very hard on her. So early in the book, you don't see him in a very good light. He's very antagonistic. But as she kind of grows up through the ranks, you realize that he was pushing her for a reason. And you kind of see him in a different light, and you're thankful for his presence. And there's also, her childhood friend that she's with before she's exiled from the Ark. You see him as an innocent child. They're playing together. They have this friendship, and then she gets exiled, and she essentially goes with him because he was already going to the fleet. And then they're suddenly in the same academy class training together, and things are different because she is the outcast. She's the one girl in this class of 30 boys, and they don't want her there because she's not supposed to be there. So the dynamic changes, but then as things continue to change, he develops and he changes as well, and he becomes like her biggest advocate, her biggest defender, but he also knows her, so he's quick to call her on some things, like some of the bad decisions that she's about to make, to kind of check her and keep her in check. But he's a very dynamic character as well.
Yeah, I was kind of like hearing how the characters find their way into the story. Some of my authors have been on the show. They've said stuff like, well, this one character just kind of appeared while I was writing. I had no intent of having this character in my story, but they just kept bothering me to kind of find their way into the story. So I'm like, fine, I'll put you in the story. Right.
It happens. That's happened to me many times.
Yeah.
You feel like there's this need, there's this void in the story that you have to fill with something. And that's what you do. That just happens sometimes.
What about the ideal reader? Who do you kind of have envisioned in your mind that's going to love Falcata?
Okay, so science fiction fans who loved Battlestar Galactica, grew up playing the game Homeworld on PC. So Homeworld has always been one of my favorite games. I love it, as it's kind of one of those games that has kind of faded in recent years, which is sad. But space operas that are very kind of gritty, a little industrial, that really have those real world scientific elements kind of cooked into them, but you still get like the vastness of the universe. The people that really appreciate that kind of material would love Falcata.
All right. If you could equate the book in theme and maybe kind of story to a movie, because you said you love movies, is there a movie that would be a perfect companion to the book, where it's kind of like, it kind of has elements of this kind of feeling? Because I like, as a musician, I always try to compare my music to other music, so people are like, it's kind of like this and a little bit of that, kind of smashed all together.
It's I don't know if I'd be able to find one central thing that there's a couple of different elements, here and there. There's definitely some influence of Ender's Game in especially with the child soldiers, training and their defense. There's a lot of influence of Dune, because Dune is a monumental piece of science fiction. There's no getting around it. There are certain things that Boone did that no other book has done since or before. Yeah. There's too many lists, actually.
Yeah.
But, those are the big ones, I would say, for sure.
Yeah. It's kind of a nod to those, right? Because, like you said, they shape not only the time when they were created, but into the future as well. And then that trickles down as inspiration to authors into the future, right? So I love how those stories just keep carry on.
Yep, they're classics for a reason.
Yeah. All right. Now, you did mention to me that there's a possibility that we can hear a little bit from the book. I am a huge fan of any author that shares with us from their own book, because you wrote the words, so you know what's coming next. So I love voice actors too who bring life to books. That's amazing. But there's something special for me as a listener of books when the author themselves read to us. So can you kind of set up a little bit for us where you're dropping us into the story? So we kind of get in some little context about what maybe's led up to where we're going to hear. And I'm just going to turn it over to you. I'm going to go sit with the audience and listen. This is going to be fun.
All right. So the passage I have is it's a little less than halfway through the book. So Lynette is not a kid anymore, and she is not in training anymore. She has survived. I'm not going to say graduated training because it's very rough. Not everybody survives, but she has survived training, and she's become a fighter pilot in the fleet. So in a fleet of these big starships that are there to protect the Ark. And as the Ark kind of wanders around the galaxy looking for a new homeworld, they obviously have to salvage what resources they can. Sometimes they come across these incomprehensibly huge derelict spacecrafts from alien civilizations that are long gone. And that's kind of what happens here in this scene. So this fragment of a world ship is so much bigger. It's like 100 times larger than the Ark itself. And it's just this dark, mysterious object, and they keep having ships disappear around it. And her unit is tasked with kind of going and patrolling around it to see, if they can find out what's going on, or if they can find out where these fellow ships are disappearing to. And so they're on patrol, and they're ordered to actually go inside of the Ark. And she demands, some fire support from a guided missile frigate before they do that, just because of the risk. But, obviously things don't go well. They get attacked, and, this is really kind of the chaos of what's going on. So there's enemies kind of flying all around her. There's this big space battle inside of this world ship, where, it's really chaotic, and she's starting to lose her fellow pilots and their strike crafts. So, so that's where we are. And,
okay.
What we know, and disclaimer, I'm not a voice actor, but I will definitely do my best. So,
Awesome.
Here we go. So the enemy ships were fast and turned quickly. There were so many inside the derelict that suddenly felt much smaller than it did before the shooting started. She held down the trigger on her autocannon, sending streaming tracers belching from the weapons of her Archangel as she maneuvered back and forth in pursuit. It took several seconds, but eventually these two scored a lucky hit, and the Marauder went spiraling off as it broke apart into several smaller pieces, each scattering away in the zero-gravity vacuum. "This is 2-2, I'm hit." It was Anton. His voice was one of horror and desperation. "What's your status?" Lynette answered. "I am..." Lynette looked down on her tracker to see Anton's status turn black and go offline. "We lost 2-2, Armand's voice came over the net. "Roger," Lynette replied, swinging her fighter wide to come up on her next target. 1-1, I'm hit. It was Saval this time. "I'm losing power." "Make a break for the Crassus." 1-3, she bit her lip. "You can make it." "Get them off me," Blair's voice was frantic. 1-1, we need to consolidate and regroup, Shane said. "There are too many of them." Shane's voice was calm, but that didn't dissuade the mounting panic building inside of her. "We are all going to die if we stay here." The sobering thought hit her like a stone. Then she gave the order, "Epsilon flight, regroup after the Crassus." She received a series of acknowledgments, but it wasn't near the amount she was hoping for. Meanwhile, the storm of plasma coming toward her continued to intensify. It seemed as soon as she dodged one orb, the next one threatened her just the same. The small black marauder ships continued to spill out from deep inside the labyrinth of the world ship beyond. "Fall back behind the Crassus, Epsilon," she spoke, willing everyone to comply before she lost another pilot. Epsilon 1-1, this is Epsilon Stallion. Bly's voice penetrated the net with authority. I'm ordering you to withdraw. Get out of the derelict world ship. Roger, Lynette complied. But then she thought, how are we even going to get out? We're surrounded on all sides from an enemy that keeps coming, and we're deep in confined space. But bitterly, she also thought, I knew this damn thing was a death trap. Then, as her attention shifted to looking for an exit, an archangel not far from her was engulfed in plasma. Lynette watched as the superheated matter liquefied the fighter's outer skin and sent it tumbling off toward the corroded cityscape of the world ship below. 1-1, this is 1-5. Shane's voice was shrill but calm at the same time. I'm going down. I've lost all control. No, not Shane, no. 1-5, eject. Lynette yelled over the channel. Get out. The lanyard's not responding. His voice sounded strangely calmer than before. The cockpit's melting all around me. Please get out, Lynette watched helplessly, unable to do even the simplest things to help him. Shane's archangel flew apart in molten, white-hot fragments as it spiraled down into the dark and mysterious surface below. You got this, Lynette, Shane's voice said with a flavor of finality. Get them out. What was left of his archangel impacted between unrecognizable structures of the jungle of rust and disintegrated metal below. It left Lynette looking on in horror, unable to form a comprehensible thought. Lieutenant Shane is gone. Then, before she could reorient herself, another enemy craft appeared off to her right. The hostiles zoomed toward her, scattering plasma all around her fighter. Plasma impacted her archangel's port side, and it was enough to stun her with its incredible force. In a shuddering instant, her strike craft lost all power. She was left careening out of control through the inside of the derelict. But then the explosion happened. Lynette spun her head to the left to see fire and molten metal consuming the body of her ship. And it was all she could do to yell over the net. I'm hit! She grabbed the cords beneath her seat and yanked on them with all her might, sending her rocketing out of her cockpit. The archangel she had been in only moments before broke apart in fiery, molten fragments beneath her. Now there was nothing between her flight suit and the ancient, dead alien world surrounding her. She tumbled through space between plasma, missiles, and tracers alike, and braced herself for the impact of the alien brown surface coming up to meet her with ever-increasing speed.
There's a lot of visuals in there, and you really feel like you're thrown right into that. Like, is that hard to write, that kind of action? Is that hard to plan out?
No. Actually,
no? Good, really.
Writing like that, I really get into a zone. When I start writing scenes like that, it just kind of comes to me. And those scenes are actually really easy for me to write, I think. So
with your background as well, like you have your own personal stories of things you've seen and things you've experienced back, like when you were 22. Like you've lived some pretty interesting days, right? So again, that's a well that you can draw from the feelings, maybe not specifically the story, but the feelings and moments when you're in a strange land and you maybe don't feel as welcome, or you're learning as you go, and there's a threat all the time around you, sometimes visible, sometimes not, right? So, yeah, it's interesting how that kind of all feeds into your story and your writing.
Yep, absolutely.
Wow, interesting. Okay, so Falcata, did you say the book is now available to everyone, or where are we at with this?
Yes, so the book is available. It's ebook form right now. The print version is coming, hopefully soon. But you can get it at the Golden Storylines books website, as well as on Amazon.
So we'll have links to everything in the show notes for all that. It's amazing. For you, Luke, again, my show is called Living the Next Chapter, so it's kind of built into the name of my show. Are you continuing to write? What can we expect from you for your next chapter?
Oh, yeah, I'm actually working on another book right now. Well, I'm working on several books, but I have another book completed. I am in the depths of editing it right now. I am super excited about it. And I have big plans this fall for it, actually. So hopefully I will, we'll be talking about that one here soon.
Good.
So that one's called Velvet Rain. It's kind of a sci-fi spin of modern conflict in Africa, actually. So very different from Falcata and Icewind, but extremely excited about that one. So
good. Yeah, my selfish reason behind my question of what's next for you is I just want to have you back. So that's opening the door to have you back on the show as we celebrate the next thing, right?
No, definitely. Looking forward to it.
Excellent. So your Facebook page would be the front place you want to send people as a first point of contact, do you think, Luke?
Yep, definitely.
Okay. So I have a link for that in the show notes as well. Yeah, and then I'm encouraging everyone, as you buy both Icewind and Falcata, to leave an amazing review, like we mentioned for Icewind already. But leave a great review as a reader. I think our authors appreciate hearing your thoughts and your perspective on the book. And it helps for anyone else that are looking at the book online and they haven't heard this conversation yet, and they haven't met Luke yet, they're reading your words, and that's a buying decision for them. So give people some context to why you love these books so much. I think it really helps for Luke to sell more books. So that's something we can do to help our authors, right, Luke? I love it. Good.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. Luke, thank you so much for being on the show. Congratulations on these 2 great books out there in the world, and looking forward to many, many more from you. Thank you not only for your author journey, but also for serving your country and the amazing things that you've been able to experience in this life. I appreciate you being on the show, Luke.
Thank you so much, Dave. I love being here.
Excellent. Excellent. Everyone, all information is always in the show notes. Keep supporting our authors. They're amazing. And the more you support them, the more they're encouraged to keep writing. So let's keep Luke in business. Keep him writing. Luke, thank you so much. Hey, thanks for listening to the podcast. Glad to have you here. I just want to let you know that you can always find out what we're doing live in the moment by going to our YouTube channel. Head over to livingthenextchapter.com. There'll be a link right there. Head over to our YouTube channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, do all the things that all the YouTubers love to say. And in our YouTube channel, a couple things. You're going to get advanced listens. You're going to get the episodes that we're working on in real time. So we record and post daily on our YouTube channel. I'd love for you to give us a follow over there. As well, we're making playlists. We have over 500 episodes. So finding the right episode for you, we're trying to group things into playlists. So if you like children's books, if you like business, you like historical fiction, we're grouping our authors together to make it a little easier for you to find your favorite next author. So head over to livingthenextchapter.com. And again, I'd love to hear from you. Hearing from the listeners of the show is great. And I just want to say thank you for being a part of the podcast family. And I look forward to having you back for the next episode. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate your time and your listen. Take care.